Dr. Andrew Garnham is back with us. Hello, Doc.
Hey, Andrew.
You've worked with Chris Froome, whose sensational performance raised many people's eyebrows, unfortunately, across the weekend. But you worked with him across Com Games and in Sun Tours and so on, and kind of charted his progression, haven't you?
Yeah, look, he's someone I've seen from early on, from 2006 Commonwealth Games here in Melbourne. Complete unknown. In the time trial, 72 riders, he was the very first rider away. So obviously no expectations. We just thought he was a club rider who, you know, managed to secure a free ride with a small country, as sometimes tends to happen in Commonwealth Games. Anyway, he sat in the hot seat for 50 riders. He finished 18th or something like that. He was clearly respectable, mixed it in the road race. Didn't hear much about him. And then 2008, the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, again here in Victoria. The bunch up Mount Buller, Chris Jonglevord, the mountain biker, was first up there in a breakaway. Froome was next, rode away from the likes of Richie Porte. So clearly had some talent, but then disappeared. He's had these disappearances, and I think that's the concern that's sort of come out of it. So people haven't really sort of tracked the background, but having seen a bit of him, you know, figured this is a guy to watch. Maybe there's a bit of talent here, so he's always been in my mind, and he's done some good things.
Good to know.
And what did you think about him on Ventoux and the way that he rode, the way that he won?
Yeah, look, it's a remarkable ride in terms of, you know, maintaining that cadence, the acceleration, those sorts of things, but clearly a measured performance. And you see what Richie Porte said about him. That's how he trains. You know, he trains to throw those attacks in and disrupt everyone. And you sort of look at it from a power production point of view and you think, gee, it's demanding on his body. It throws everybody else out. But to sort of attack like that and then recover and keep going, you'd think he'd just sort of gradually crank the power and just drop everyone piece by piece, but doesn't.
That's nice from Richie, but they're not the only blokes training hard. And I think where the speculation comes from is he's just head and shoulders above here. That's all.
Yep.
Like Contador is the second best bloke in the race, but he can't hold a stick to him.
And this is one of these interesting questions, isn't it? Are we having sort of one of these changeovers where we've got some of the older riders who've perhaps you know, had some help in the past, who are sort of transitioning out of it? We've got some young guys coming through. Is Chris Froome the fill-in? Is he going to be the star for years to come, or are we going to see someone like Quintana come through? So it's good to track those sorts of things. But
I think now when you're seeing a new era of cycling, the clean era, or call it whatever you want, now it's all going to be new. When you see a performance like Froome's done in the first 2 weeks here and the whole year, it's not just a fluke. And he would have won the race last year, and if the big bosses didn't say stop, that is what we might be in for. You know, there could be bigger gaps now. Out of pure science from Team Sky, preparation and
science, physiology. You know, we know there are things that he's good at, things that as a racer he's not quite so good at. Obviously, you know, he's reliant upon that team support to look after him in things like the crosswind situations.
I'm excited by it. It's the best tour ever, right? And I have a medical question. Either doctor may jump in. We talked about him going for those accelerations, which puts him deep into these red zones. So it's a zone that you can't keep your heart rate up in because you're producing too much lactic acid. How long can you maintain that effort for? Either of you, either doctor. I'm fine.
Look, 30 seconds is usually what we're looking for to maintain those sorts of efforts. Then we look at recovery. Lactate is something that people train with. We've got this concept that lactic acid is a really bad thing. In fact, it's just another type of fuel source in the body that we use in a different way, and it's utilised by a whole bunch of different organs. So it's a handy thing, but you've got to adapt to using it.
And you've got to train it, don't you? It's got to be. It's now saturation. They're training in it that often. Like Sky now are almost training old school. They're doing a lot longer, but at a longer intensity. You know, not the short, explosive.
And what do you think about the idea of the demand for data, you know, demanding a rider's power data or their SRM file to kind of prove that they're clean?
Yeah, look, there's been some good research on some of this thing. There's some fairly speculative stuff around where people are just sort of throwing accusations out there and aren't well backed up, but there's people looking at it pretty carefully and saying, look, the evidence that we have so far says that Froome's near the upper end of what we accept as being possible, you know, making the predictions beforehand, not after the fact, and saying, look, he still falls within the sort of the possibility zone rather than the outrageous zone. And Alpe d'Huez is going to be the interesting one because we have a lot of data on that, both in the, shall we say, the doping era and the pre-doping era. And because of the nature of the climb, it's a switchback climb. It's not like Ventoux where they essentially had a tailwind all day.
I think my data will be interesting. The record time of mine up Alpe d'Huez, 77 minutes. Pantani's record, 35 minutes. So
you had a good coffee halfway?
yeah, I stopped and refilled the bottles too. Doc, we could chat for ages about this. We've got some goodies for you, courtesy of Mr. Gates here. Lovely to chat to you again. More late nights coming up. What have you put in that thing? You barely lifted up.
Yeah,
2 for 1.
Fabulous.
And we look
Thanks,
forward to
Nick.
monitoring all that power monitor data as well. Love to just chat to you again.